Hello everybody, welcome to Awesome Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already and drop a like on this video. I'm trying to hit 100k subscribers on this channel, so your subscription would be much appreciated. Also drop a like, only takes 1 second, makes a massive difference. So, the Golden State Warriors have a money problem. Most prominently revolving around Draymond Green and his impending contract extension. This is a topic that came up a few weeks ago, and I didn't end up tackling it as soon as I wanted to because a bunch of second channel stuff got delayed for the sake of really setting up a schedule for my main channel, which has worked out, but second channel videos suffered mildly for it, but I'm back on top of things now. So as a result, this topic, I probably would have covered this like a week ago and I'm just now getting to it. But for those of you who might not be aware, maybe you missed it or maybe you forgot because again, it was a couple of weeks ago, Draymond Green wants a max contract and apparently the Warriors are not so receptive to that idea. And that initially sparked a whole conversation as to whether or not Draymond was worth a max, and we are going to have that conversation. But the first thing that I want to highlight and what I think is a more important and slept on aspect of this conversation is the financial perspective for the Golden State Warriors, because for them specifically, I don't know that the topic of whether or not they max Draymond Green would be as big of a deal going forward if they didn't already have a lot of financial problems going forward. Basically, the Warriors have been a team that have been willing to pay the luxury tax bill for forever. And that's kind of been their reputation. Like, they've been the most expensive team in basketball for a couple of years consecutively, especially when Kevin Durant was on the team. And they were always willing to pay that luxury tax. However, it's gotten to the point where that luxury tax is potentially going into the hundreds of millions of dollars. And if you did not realize, the reason that Gary Payton II and Otto Porter Jr. did not return to the Warriors this offseason was because if they brought those guys back, they were going to have to pay, I believe it was $200 million in luxury tax. That's a lot of money to pay for two decent role players. And while I am one to get on a team for not being willing to pay the luxury tax, usually the luxury tax is like $10 to $15 million, which for an NBA franchise that makes billions, and the Warriors are, I believe, at least because of international numbers, like the most profitable franchise in the NBA, that money can be more than made up for. $15 million is ultimately inconsequential. When it's approaching $200 million, I'm not going to get too mad at the owners for not being willing to pay that. So as a result, Gary Payton walked, Otto Porter Jr. walked, and the rest is history. And instead, they now have, what's his name, from the Bucks and then briefly on the Kings, Dante DiVincenzo. That was their signing of the offseason, which is definitely a downgrade. But being that the option was to bring those two back and pay $200 in luxury tax, or bring him back and not do that, or bring him in and not do that, I completely understand that decision. And I do want to say, just going forward for this video, I'm by no means a cap expert. This is just some other shit that I've been seeing. So if I get some details wrong here potentially, just bear that in mind, that this is not my best area in terms of covering basketball. Not that I have a strictly great skill set in one specific area or the other. I guess like tackling stupid narratives is probably the thing that I think I'm the best at. But anyways, whole other fucking topic that isn't worth discussing. Anyways, so that's the financial situation they're at now. They already have a bunch of huge contracts. They have Steph on his max, they have Klay on his max, and they gave him his max after he tore his ACL. So I believe there's 2 years left on that deal going into this season. If it's not 2, it's 3. So those max contracts, they have Andrew's max contract, they have Draymond making, I believe, around $25 million. And then they have Jordan Poole's contract extension coming up. And not too soon after that, they're going to have Jonathan Kuminga and maybe even Moses Moody's contract extension coming up. So you are looking at a lot of money on the books. And then we get to the question of Draymond Green, who I believe his contract extension is 2 seasons from now. I think he's on the same timeline as Klay Thompson. If he wants max money, it's kind of impossible to give him that. And Klay Thompson no way in hell is Klay Thompson going to get max money. Like, I can't foresee that being the case, right? Like, I'm sorry, but there's just no way Klay Thompson, at the production that he has been in this last year, the production he was in the playoffs, the production he was going into the playoffs, if he continues to be that guy, first of all, I mean, that could be just simply limited by some different shot selection choices. But either way, Klay is not what he was, at least thus far. It's not off the table that he returns to that. And if Klay returns to that, then yeah, he is a max level player. And honestly, if Draymond Green is what he is, I do believe he is a max level player. It's just weird to say that a guy who averages like 7 points per game is a max guy, but when you consider the value that he actually brings to the Golden State Warriors franchise, he absolutely is. But either way, actually paying those guys and then paying your young guys, I didn't even mention James Wiseman as someone you potentially have to worry about because he's already entering year number 3 now. And what if he's really good after this year and you have to extend him? I mean, I'm not that worried about that because I'm not a big believer in James Wiseman. But let's just say hypothetically, you have Jordan Poole, James Wiseman, Kuminga, and Moody, all 4 players that you're probably going to have to pay a decent amount of money. Like, I believe at worst, Moody and Kuminga will be like $15 million per year type of guys by the time they are up for their contract extension, which would be just 2 seasons from now when I believe Klay and Draymond are up for their extensions. I don't even know when. I think didn't Steph get an extension not long ago? I'm trying to remember, but I don't. Either way, financial problems. That's the best way to put it. All this video, all this topic wraps up to financial problems and luxury tax. Now, maybe, I think they'd be kind of crazy to do it, but maybe the owners are okay paying $200 million in luxury tax when it means bringing back Jonathan Kuminga and Klay Thompson or Draymond and Jordan Poole. That makes more sense for sure. But given given that's not Gary Payton and Otto Porter Jr., so it makes more sense for them willing to pay that money. But given all of that, I worry and I fear for what the Warriors' future is going to look like, simply because they're going to have to make decisions so much based on finances and actually paying guys what they're worth, rather than what is the correct basketball move. And unfortunately, money can get in the way in that regard. This is like the too much talent problem. You can have too much talent in the way of like the 2019 Celtics where there's too many fucking guys who want to shoot the ball. But you can also have it in the way of like the Thunder. They traded James Harden because they were like, we can't pay Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Serge Ibaka, and James Harden all max money, because they thought they were about to have to pay Serge some crazy money, and then he kind of stagnated a little bit and didn't end up being quite a max level player, but still someone worth quite a bit of money, because prime Serge Ibaka is one of the more underrated players in league history, I think. But again, side tangent. Money. The Warriors have money problems, and it's something to worry about. And as for the topic of whether or not you would extend Draymond Green, personally, I don't love his insistence that he is worth that kind of money, even though I understand it. Like, he was pretty aggressive in the report about, like, yeah, you're giving me max money. Calm down. But separate from that, there are only, like, this might be a video I end up doing. Draymond Green is more important to the Warriors dynasty than Klay Thompson is. And people just give Klay that credit because he has a more aesthetically pleasing game and they understand 20 points per game better than they do 7, but more impactful. But seriously, Draymond Green means not as much as Steph to Warriors culture and the Warriors dynasty, but he is the very clear number 2, especially on the defensive end of the floor. But his playmaking, his leadership, his defense, that has everything, that has a large chunk to do with the Warriors' success. And you take that away just simply to save some money, and you're going to see the team hurt as a result of this. Draymond Green really fucking matters to the Warriors' success. And not having him around, it would matter. We are talking about like Steph, Draymond, and Klay, who are getting into their mid-30s. Steph already is. I believe Draymond and Klay are right on the precipice of that as well. So, how many years does this trio really have? And at what point do you balance letting the young guys step in? I don't know. It's an interesting thing. But yeah, that's something to watch out for the Warriors. I might actually make a video out of that because, yeah, it's definitely something to watch out for. But that's it. Goodbye.